Well,
Hello and welcome to the third day of Digital India Craft Week. Weather
thank
is
you.
extraordinary today, and so is my guest. Some names are larger than life. They do not need an introduction. But it is my honor and privilege to introduce the cinematographer, the scenographer, the production designer, the craft revivalist, Padma Bhushan Shri Rajeev Sethi. Rajeev ji, a very warm welcome to the Digital India Craft Week.
Well, the good news is that thank God we have grandchildren. I would not have been able to negotiate these buttons and the new technology that has come to help us do this in this pandemic. If it was not for the 12-year-old Yadu. Yadu, wave your hands quickly. Look at me, you will not see. Put your hand. There's my grandson.
Hi, hello.
So hopefully, I don't know, they can hand us the new technology, but whether we can hand them the most ancient of India's technologies, the most ancient of humankind's technology is another question. Whether we can hand them with a sense of dignity, with a sense of continuity. I am, at this age, at 70, concerned.
Right.
Deeply concerned.
Rajiv ji, it's been 3 days since we have started Digital India Craft Week, and a lot of people have joined us. They are discussing the way forwards, the issues forwards, the situation about craftsmen, the government, public, everything we are discussing. And when it came to art, I couldn't think of any other better name. So I'm beginning with you with a very important question. The art is alive as long as the artist is. This is your article some 30 years back that you had written, and it is so relevant in current times. Would you like to throw some light on this, please?
Well, at the very outset, with this pandemic, we are now applauding those who have saved our bodies. But we're about body and soul. And it's the artists that nurture the soul. And if we ignore this at our peril, if anyone ignores it, it's at our peril. But I must, at the very outset, explain to you my apprehension about the term craft. You have the Indian Craft Week. It's a new idea that you are developing as something that will become an annual feature. I am concerned about what it means because, we don't even really have an appropriate Hindi translation for the word design or craft. And I believe that it's important that we examine why how do we really identify ourselves? How does the sector become real? And if I may just help you prepare a larger canvas of concern to begin with, I believe that in spite of our new constitution, independent India chose to perpetuate a very colonial legacy. Our system of governance remained imperial, top-down, hierarchical. So the last century was determined by economic ideologies. The danda was in the hands of financial mandarins. They decided statistics and their economic associations defined what got where. Now, along with this came rapid industrialization and urbanism. We became a nation of migrants, as we are learning very clearly, very poignantly right now. With this, of course, is because now we're moving into artificial intelligence, automation, and with no protection for human skills. The rural India had been de-skilled. All their skills were not recognized. And we have allowed a lot of them to be marginalized, to move away, side by side with a democracy where it was a participant one. And parties thrive with polarization. They're insecure of vigilant participation. So we are no longer really we are a representative democracy, not a participative one. Now, this century, especially post-COVID, will have to find a totally new mantra. Economic ideologies will have to be replaced by creative ecologies. Culture will influence these, making, doing, and being. Culture is about that. Village republics will rise with technology. Now, finally, Gandhi will become the prophet. As smart city slickers get challenged, we have a lot of people who speak about India, the urban is future, the future is urban, and how we are moving. Now, these people who talk about the smart city have to realize that social distancing will question the kind of densities our planners are able to ill-conceive. They have not found an answer. The climate change and nature will demand at all levels, particularly the urban level, where balanced coexistence of species. Now industry will seek clean, fully automated manufacture, where even this labor will become infructuous. So what is the future of work? It will require a fast emerging new skill subset that are carbon friendly, inclusive, decentralized. The hand, the body, the eye, the spirit would reign supreme. So everything would have to be tested against soil, soul, and society, the three S's, as I've heard several people speak about. Now, this derogatively termed so-called unorganized sector will have to be recognized as a formidable self-organized. And this India, I believe, could have the edge. Traditional knowledge systems and parivarik paramparas could be bigger and better than ever imagined. Villages can be reskilled and better connected as human settlements. The future will exist, I believe, in every village. And the Indian state, I think, will be at great peril if it does not prepare for this eventuality. This means our priorities will have to change. Pedagogies will have to be reinvented with the science of cultural insights and common sense.
Yes.
Valuation of products and services, manufacture and delivery mechanisms will not require labor-intensive, but human-intensive subset of livelihoods. What we refer to as crafts today, forgive me for saying it on this platform, comes with a lot of international excess baggage. I was very happy to hear you having a very broad set of people who joined you. My friend Godgada from the Middle East, our colleagues from the British Council. Now, I have always been a little uncomfortable about this term craft when we used to, when Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay was the president of the World Craft Council, we used to have this constant debate whether what they understand, the world understands as craft, is how we see it. Ours is a livelihood issue that goes way beyond what studio crafts were about. So their energies are very important, where they're going with design, with sense of each idea, with the sense of the individual. There are things that we all have to learn from. There is absolutely a great deal of give and take. But I'm very, because India is, it's the word craft has it's difficult. Shilp, yes, and I'll come to it. But I think the new sector that we need to refer to it is the creative and cultural enterprise. And this requires a very transdisciplinary discourse. It means creating a new economic, political, social, ecological, technological capital. And this would generate its own intellectual property in a knowledge society. It'll have to be a new brand. Maybe Hastshilp to us, Hastshilp Udyog is something that planners take more seriously as a term. But when I say cultural industry, the two terms don't really sit together and people start debating. So, but Hastshilp Udyog is an Udyog. So no translation worldwide is required. Maybe like yoga, there was an Indian word, but now the world accepts it. So what is this Hastshilp? What is hand? And how is it 100% handmade? What we have to be wary about, and this is what's happening now. I've heard some of the sessions in other webinars as an audience, where I find people talking about block prints being turned into silk screens and e-cuts being made into printed. It's just, they're not understanding the skill. There is no pehchan left, where you understand how the skill comes up with a design and comes up with the product. We talk about labor-saving machine devices, and these cannot compete with the overwhelming amount of fakes that confront us. If you have an India Craft Week and you have an exhibition like I did some time back, and I bought the Minister of Handicrafts and Handlooms, our textile minister, and showed her a whole room full of things that I'd picked up from all the government emporiums and from the cottage industries and the khadi, and all of them were machine made. So how is it craft? Now, how do we ensure that it remains the substance of the supreme instrument? How do we know that my cloth has come from a spinner with two fingers? No, these are very critical issues. And unless we start examining this, the field is going to get submerged with just endless manufacture. And I think we lose an edge in the knowledge economy. So we really have to take this seriously. But I'll go on like this, so you should butt in with questions that are burning and issues that are not answered, and I'll be happy to meet them.
Yeah. So, sir,
please tell me about time. Tell me when we're about to be over.
We have time. I'll ask 2-3 questions, sir. We have time. We are good to go. So my second question is, for last 35 years, you have worked in design, architecture, culture, publications, policy, and identity.
I'm afraid it's 50. That what you're reading is from a
50 years. Okay, my apologies. So for last 50 years, you have worked in design, architecture, culture, publication, policy, and identified ways to support vulnerable artisans. Had you ever imagined a situation like COVID, or are you working on any new policy to set directions for our craft industry, sir?
You know, not belittling what's happening to us right now and the measures that had to be taken, and which were, of course, extremely unprecedented. But in a sense, as I've been explaining, we have been having points of crisis since many, many, many decades. And particularly post-independence, I've explained this whole larger scenario of having inherited an imperial system that doesn't configure the base of the pyramid, which is where our largest number of skilled people are. Even in the mapping, we keep asking for mapping. At least we've been asking now for 30 years. But do we know what to map? Do we know what India considers its skill sector? What it considers its craft, if you want to call it that? There are many things. I've got, for example, something to show you. Here, this is a charu from Jharkhand. Now, it's a great design. All it did was join all these wonderful straw into an extremely well.
Very, very exotic.
You just have to put it together, and now you have an extremely efficient hold and something that can become use. It's used every day in my house for the last 25 years. But are these jharu makers anywhere in your census or even in your classification of what you call grafts? So I think, or you look at this, if you look at the lamp behind me right now,
It's
that's
beautiful.
made by the people who make fish traps. Now
Right,
they make fish traps. They just are seasonal. They come for
Yes.
3 months, they make these fish traps. But they've been working with us and with a dear colleague of mine, Jwalant Mahadev, to create a whole new subset of ideas, screens, furniture, lights for markets that prove what Village India can make for the whole world
Right.
in slow fashion, in slow food,
Right.
in slow travel. Look at travel. When we talk about travel, can you find that सोने पे सुहागा मिलेगा? सोने पे सुहागा मिलेगा तो मुझे दिखा भी दो. कहीं रखा हो यहाँ पे. उसकी एक लंबी line. I'm very concerned. I might, if I find it, the offices are all closed. So for me to put it, I'm an artist too, cannot just speak. I find it very debilitating to be able to use words when pictures speak 1,000 different perceptions. So the next new shift, I think, is going to be on public outreach with all our skills. And I think it will be linking architecture and engineering to crafts and arts. I think we are going to go into the infrastructure in such a way that if there is a highway plan from Bombay to Delhi, this could be having zones, crafts, where people can bring up their crafts. And people must learn to travel slow. Going by planes is not carbon friendly. It's going in Europe, for example, in parts of Scandinavia, there's a surcharge of $100 on every ticket. Now I imagine, I'm not against air travel, I take it all myself, but I long to do what we call slow travel, like slow food, like slow fashion. The processes are very important. Where you go, you stop, you look, and you admire things. But ये चट मंगनी पट ब्याह का जो समय है, ये खत्म हो गया. We have to understand कि these things happen over a certain time. They have an emotional connection. I will show you one more object in the end, which will explain this. But in the end, tell me before we finish. Give me a minute and I'll tell you.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Sir, Asian Heritage Foundation is working, towards raising the awareness regarding the current status of Katputli colony. I've read about it.
Well, yes, but Katputli colony, when I started work 45 years ago, I could say that I was hands-on. Today, I'm happy to see that there is a huge number of young people who themselves are self-organized and they need a little help, but they are quite independent and can do whatever they want to on their own strength and power. And that is the empowerment that we have to seek in every sector. Katputli colony is in a terrible situation at the moment because the bulldozers knocked their homes 6 years ago and shifted them to a transit camp where they were supposed to stay for 2 years, but they're
Right,
still
sir.
there because the builder who was responsible for making their in-situ development has not found it urgent enough to do that. So they're sitting in a transit camp, devoid of their daily work, not being able to access their markets, devoid of useful, gainful employment. And I hope the Delhi administration is hearing this because Mahesh Sisodia ji, who's done so much work on education, must link them up with every school and
Right.
bring them back to, it's not just about rations. Just giving relief is not going to help anybody. It's
Right.
got to be livelihoods. And these people live from day to day. So a lockdown, I hope, will not, of course, be longer than whatever is envisioned. And I hope it'll open up. But even then, they are now in a transit camp. They're not where audiences can find them. So they will have to be helped to take it further. So these kind of daily battles are in every field. And Asian Heritage Foundation is now working in 6 states, in Andhra, in Odisha, in Jharkhand, in Bihar, in Madhya Pradesh, to be able to be able to work with skilled communities, with design-led initiatives to position their products for larger markets. But those markets, as I said, could also be local. Like the jharu is very good for local markets. Their own foodstuffs, their own foraged foods, for example, which they collect from forests, are wonderful. You cannot replace them with hybrid seeds and packeted foods from processed foods from the city, which is of course happening, but at great detriment to rural empowerment. And that's what I think will happen again.
Right.
That is what I was suggesting when I was talking about earlier, that
Right.
that return to the village will mean, if it doesn't mean a lot, then we are really in trouble.
Right. Sir, with the current situation, everybody's talking that tourism is going to be difficult now. People will not travel that much. There will be less of events happening. Celebrations will be much smaller than they were before. There won't be large gatherings. So we know that the folk performers of India, maybe the people like from Katputli colony or the Chow dancers, who used to go to perform at different events, exhibitions, local communities, markets. What is the future for them if the event
Don't confuse the term tourist. There are many kinds of tourists.
Okay.
Like the foreign tourist, which is a very big chunk of our, we need to get more and more of them, is
Right.
marginal compared to domestic.
Okay.
The domestic
Okay.
is huge.
It is.
And hopefully all their local arts and crafts will become relevant to them. That's what I was talking about, slow travel, when I said linking our arts and crafts to architecture and engineering meant
Right.
redoing the facilities all along our highways.
Right.
The restaurant, the hospitality could become local.
Right.
So we don't have to have all the craftsmen of India go to Bombay, Delhi, Madras, to the local urban hearts.
True.
But people would go to them. And in that slow travel, they're seeing much more, they're learning much more, they're giving much more, and that is the future.
Yeah, so I think slow travel is something which is really important in coming time. And that's what we should look up to.
It will promote the crafts, it will promote the arts, it will promote the local. So these, right, I call them arteries. Pardon the word arteries. If I had those papers and the drawings, I will show them to you. But at another time, you can do a more in-depth analysis of our whole effort of linking roadways to arts and crafts. It's called Sone Pe Suhaga.
Right. Rajeev sir, I have another question, which is about the fame and the material. So material recognition or social fame, what is the definition of artists in last decade? And when economy see its bottom low, then how important is this fame when we have nothing to survive upon?
Again, when you say artist, I at least assume you're also referring to the craftsmen that you've been celebrating. For me, there is no difference. I do not.
No, I mean both. I mean both.
Over the hierarchy.
No, sir. I mean all.
So the artists are, I think, they are going to just could I? I'm sorry, geriatric. Could I repeat just the essence of your question? Could you repeat it again?
So yes, the question was material recognition or social fame. What is the definition of artists in last decade? And when economy see its bottom low, like current situation, then how important is this fame when we have nothing to survive upon?
Yeah, no. So I think there has to be reassessment at all levels. I think now when when all industry will become automated, this will survive and will create an edge. As long as you as a consumer is able to understand the difference. This is where I talked about pedagogy. This is where I talked about pehchan, about recognition. If there is recognition, you will understand what this can make, which machines can't. And having said that, this has to step one step ahead of machines, like our Suzni embroiderers who are now making COVID masks also, but from Bihar. But they think asymmetry. They have an emotional retina that determines how the needle goes, unlike what the machines can do. So they're a step ahead. Now, the machines will get there. The machines can make very sophisticated interlock, they can make jamdanis. But you must be able to tell the difference. And therefore, I think it's important, and AHF has taken on the idea of doing 5 biennales on fiber, on ikat in Pochampalli, on brocade in Banaras, on chintz in Jaipur, and on embroideries in Srinagar, so that people begin to understand the difference between these skills, and you do not confuse a print with an ikat. If you don't get an ikat, don't let them make it, because it's somebody else's intellectual property. It's also had a GI of its own. Now, on this emotional note, if you're about to close, that was your last question, let me also explain to you what crafts, how they've inspired me. Let me show you this rolling pin. This was given to me about 20 years ago when I was working in the villages in Haryana by a family that I lived with for many years. Now, this woman who's no longer there, the mother, I used to call her Ma, she got this as her dowry. And she must have made rotis for 30 years for her entire family. She'd have raised her entire family with this. Notice how it has worn out on the edges. Oh, here. Now, this is a new one. So see how 30 years of her effort has rubbed these off. And so today, too, when I touched this object, she gave it to me. I asked her, I liked it. She said, take it, simply. It was an act of great love, and take it. So, and that's what craftsmen are like too. And people who so when I touch it, there is an emotion to it.
Right.
All great art is about emotion, art of craft. And that will never be replaced by the machine. We have to be able to tell the difference. If we can't tell the difference and we let fakes take our lives, then why are we complaining? COVID or no COVID, all this is going to go anyway.
Right. Thanks. That's incredible. And I think Digital India Craft Week Preview couldn't have accomplished what it has after your insights, sir. It was a lovely session with you. And I hope our viewers have also liked it. In case they have any questions, they can send us, and any important thing to discuss with Rajeev ji, we will share it with Rajeev sir, and any insights that come forward, we'll share it with you back to back.
Oh, so we don't do this live. There are no questions live.
No, because we are on Zoom, sir. We can't see questions. It's streaming on Facebook. Yes, but we also, technology has many facets, sir.
I have to get my grandson to improve it.
Right, sir. Rajeev ji, I'll not take more of your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely interacting with you. Such an honor.
Thank you.